Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players, uncover their stories, and discover what makes them tick. If you love guitar, music, and the backstory of people's lives, stick around. You're in the right place. The Be Fulfilled Journal helps you be more honest with yourself and with others and be more open to handling things you've avoided dealing with for years. It's a 12-week online and journal program that helps you identify and eliminate things you do that are causing you stress and live in more gratitude and joy. It was actually developed by a long-term friend of mine who got sober in 2008, and he's put together a great deal just for my listeners. You get the 300-page hardcover journal and access to the 12-week video program online, plus free shipping, plus membership in a private Facebook support group with others going through the program, plus a 5-day mini course showing you how to let go of stuff that's draining your energy, plus a 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. To start your journey and get all the bonuses, go to BeFulfilledJournal.com/ELG. That's BeFulfilledJournal.com/ELG. For information about advertising on Everyone Loves Guitar, including information on geographically targeted ads, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, and we're with the one and only Tal Morris. Tal's been a career sideman, and he's had a very busy practice throughout his career, and I just want to give a quick shout out to Steph Burns. Thanks, Steph, for hooking us up. Some of the people that Tal's worked with are Steven Seagal. He did his European tour and his blues band. Jeff Watson, formerly of Night Ranger and Dennis Young. He has played with him since 2010. He's also working with Tim Hockenberry from America's Got Talent, Season 7. He toured with Creedence Clearwater Revival, featuring former members of CCR, Stu Cook and Doug Clifford. He did that from 2004 to 2010. He subbed 2 summer tours as a sub for Steph Burns with Huey Lewis in the News. He also played on Late Night with Conan O'Brien. He was with Sons of Champlin, featuring legendary songwriter and singer Bill Champlin. Ronnie Montrose, 94, 95, and Michael Shreve, one of the founding members of Santana, the drummer. He toured with him. He's a Bay Area native, and he's had many jams and performances with all the great people that come from the San Francisco Bay Area, like Neal, Schon, Steve Smith, Narada, Michael Walden, Santana, Carlos Santana himself, Jonathan Cain, the Doobie Brothers, Mark Russo, Mick Gillette, Frank Martin, Norton Buffalo, Tommy Castro, and more. He also produced tracks for blues artist Tommy Castro on the Hard Believer release and the debut of singing sensation Rosie Crane, who was discovered by Adam Levine. He's got session credits for the concert for Ronnie Montrose, the tribute DVD, and that was on Access TV special. CCR Run Run Rudolph, which was a Hope for the Holidays benefit CD. He's played with Stu Hamm, who was on this show a while back. Tommy Castro, again, Hard Believer, Sons of Champlin, Secret and Hip Little Dreams, and Ear Candy by Mick Gillette, of course, who played horns from Tower of Power. He's also working on a guitar book titled Guitar Clarity, which is a complete guide to music theory for guitarists. Tal is endorsed by Ernie Ball, B3 Guitars, Dunlop, MXR and Way Huge, and Mesa Boogie Amps. And there you go, man. And he's doing some ninja moves right now. Getting in the zone. Tal, thanks for coming on the show, man. I appreciate it.
You are welcome.
Hey,
there's
yes,
one correction.
Yes, sir.
The band I was with was called Creedence Clearwater Revisited.
Yes, sorry about that. I know there's I got to be careful with that.
Yeah, it's just it's the founding members, the rhythm section of CCR. It's their band to play their hits, and yeah, that's the only correction. Man. Everything else was like, oh, I'm getting all glowy. It's my small little corner of the music world.
There you go, man. You own it. Hey, just a quick question. What was the last piece of music you listened to before you got on this call?
I was listening to The 16 Men of Tame by Alan Holdsworth. Al Holdsworth passed away 2 years ago yesterday.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow, that's
I've been
quick.
listening to his music pretty steadily since then. And my interest in him was completely rekindled by his passing, which is a horrible thing. But I've just been basically a 2-year Holsworth kick.
Oh, that's a good one to listen to for 2 years, man. If you got to listen to somebody, right?
Yeah, I bought the box set with every solo album he ever released, and it's just been, I don't know. I feel like the kid jumping in the plastic ball playpen. Ding, ding.
There you go, man.
Notes and chords and notes and chords.
Yep.
Oh my!
Plenty of them. Hey, so you've worked with a lot of really interesting people. I was curious. I'm going to mention some of them. If you can talk about how you got the gig and any cool, fun, or interesting stories about working with them. Let's start with Ronnie, the great Ronnie Montrose.
Ronnie Montrose, the enigma, who I call the architect of American hard rock guitar and American hard rock music. It's like all the heavy bands that that really made their mark in the 70s and 80s, they owe Ronnie Montrose. That Montrose one.
Oh,
I mean, come on.
Great record, man.
I remember vividly the first time I heard Ronnie Montrose when I was a kid. There's obviously no cell phones, no internet, blah, blah, blah. So I had a radio, and I was tuned to my favorite station. And an advertisement for Ronnie Montrose coming through town. This was in just outside of Reno, Nevada. And they played an excerpt from Rock Candy.
Oh.
And I'd never heard that. And my mind was blown. It was just a snippet, right? And I'm like freaking out. And my stepfather, Peter Laufer, he's a journalist. I understood how advertising and radio worked at that young age. And so I knew that if I waited long enough, that ad was going to come back. So my friends were coming over trying to get me to go out to play. And I'm like, I can't go anywhere. I just heard something that I can't explain, and I got to hang out here. And they're all giving me shit. And I literally sat there for 2 hours until the ad came back on, so I could figure out what I was listening to. And then I forced my mom to drive me to a store so I could find Montrose 1. And so fast forward, I'm a reasonably well-known player in the Bay Area. And I get this call from my buddy say, hey, I'm playing bass for Ronnie Montrose. I'm like, what the hell, dude? And yeah, I'm going to be doing this tour, and he needs a second guitar player. And I thought of you, and do you want to audition for Ronnie Montrose? And of course, I had to go get my diaper and excuse myself. And I auditioned for him, and he took me on. And at that time, I had no professional pedigree whatsoever, so he took me on cold as just a mechanic to, but then he enveloped me and gave me a voice within the band. We did a couple of dueling solos, and he gave me a couple of solos in the show. And he was very open and supportive, and he loved the mentor role because, obviously it's Ronnie Montrose. So, you're getting, masterclass education on the life of a living rock star legend on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And that kind of almost was equitable to the music value that was going on. So I don't know if I answered your question specifically.
No, that was cool. What, any interesting stories, or what was some of the most important things that you learned from him? Both musically or life-wise, either way.
Um, Ronnie Montrose was the first person who really understood when you're going from different venues to different venues across the country, the acoustics of the situation can greatly affect your performance and the audience's enjoyment of what's going on. And he was always writing volume within a place. He needed it to get to a certain level to have a certain effect. But it too loud, it did this other thing, and too quiet, it did this other thing that was negative. And he traveled with parametric EQ, and he taught me about parametric EQ and how the band works in a live situation. So the physics of the acoustics, and it's still relevant to this day. What I learned from him about how to approach guitar tone, live guitar tone, and the gear. How he understood gear and the minutia of the width of a fretboard, and having his bandmasters modified and his Boogie V twin pedals modified, and this builder put this specific bridge on this guitar, and here's the properties of the metal and why the sustain gets to a certain level so you can relax with your left hand, because the more sustain a guitar has, the more likely you are to make a tasteful choice, because the guitar is going to sing for you rather than you having to keep exciting the string over and over again because it's not doing its job. All this kind of stuff. It's all subtle, but when you're at that level like he is or was, that's what he's doing on a daily basis. And his brain is, he's brilliant. He's an inventor. His brain just will not stop. It was like chewing up everything.
What guitar were you playing in that gig?
I played a Hamer Chaparral Custom Pro. I wish I still had that guitar.
What happened to it?
I had to sell it, and now I've been looking for a duplicate, and no one has this guitar. But
hey man, imagine if someone's listening right now. If anybody has Tal's Hamer Custom Pro, contact him or contact me.
Yeah, the Chaparral.
The Chaparral.
Yeah, it was white. It had the boomerang inlays, the ebony fretboard, set neck, angled headstock, Floyd Rose, 24 frets, the works.
Yeah, we should get a wanted poster.
It was a complete. It was like an 80s Corvette. That thing was insane.
How about Santana? What did you do with Carlos?
I was mentored by this percussionist who was the original percussionist.
Michael Shreve?
Mike Carabello.
Oh, okay.
Michael Carabello. Michael Carabello was an important person in my music development. He was friends with my wife's family, and he discovered that I could play, and he was a very outgoing guy, and he wrote me into doing a bunch of work with him. And he was always in contact with his former Santana members, Carlos, Neal, Michael Shreve, Chapito Arias. And so I got to meet them all through Michael. And we were doing this benefit called the Black and Gold Ball, which included Tommy Johnston from the Doobie Brothers, Jonathan Cain, Ross Valerie, a bunch of other players from different Bay Area heydays. And we were rehearsing because everyone was doing a song from their heyday. And we were rehearsing Chico Ba. Chico Ba.
Great song, dun, dun.
Yeah. And it's a jam. And the band just wasn't getting it. And we were in this rehearsal space. And he knew that Carlos was in the building. So went and got him and pulled him in. And Carlos proceeded to direct the band on how to mentally orient themselves so they will make the right choices. That's how he taught.
That's why.
You know, he wasn't like telling someone specifically how to do it. He was asking them to think in a certain way and to feel in a certain way. And once you are in that headspace, then you start making the right decisions. It was very wild. And so we jammed. And we were just jamming over this tune, and he was egging me on and, you know, basically teaching me how to speak in that song. And it was wild. Very cool.
What was
he was one of my main influences coming up as a player. I mean, he's the guy that I emulated trying to learn how to bend. Him and B.B. King.
It's amazing. I saw him in concert here maybe probably 10 years ago. It's amazing how he had 12 people on stage, man. That is no easy ship to manage.
Yeah, but again, it's all about headspace. You know, the truth is that band, the original Santana band, got together as a group of guys, and everyone was basically doing what they knew how to do simultaneously. And that was the recipe that, you know, Bill Graham basically walked in on them doing this and go, everyone stop. This is freaking perfect. You're doing this, you know, and at the time it's well documented in interviews and stuff. You know, Carlos wanted to be a blues guitar player, and Bill Graham's like, this is what you're doing. This is it. This is magic. And so obviously they developed, they listened, they developed it to a high art, but it's all about, again, as he was describing, you know, the vibe.
What guitar was Carlos playing when you guys jammed?
Oh, he brought his PRS.
And
yeah.
What about you?
What was I playing then? I think I had a custom Danny Ransom guitar, who is a custom builder out of San Francisco, who has built a lot of the prototypes for Satriani, and he's a well-known local builder.
Very cool, man. Tommy Castro, blues artist.
Tommy Castro. I think he's a W.C. Handy award-winning B.B. King award. He's the real deal. Mentored by, played with John Lee Hooker. And he's on. He talks to Santana regularly. He's a great guy. Great guy. He's an incredible singer, and his guitar playing is very passionate to the medium, and he's always trying to learn more. So he came to me actually for guitar lessons because he's always working on it, which is pretty commendable for a blues guitar player. A lot of them, once they get to a certain point, you know, they stop practicing. I mean, they play their music, but Tommy's like evolving as a player, which is really cool. And through our relationship, we got to know each other. He's invited me up to play on local gigs. And when he went into the studio to cut his record, he was having some, he wanted to explore some other ideas. So he brought me in to produce his lead guitar tracks, a few of them. And so I would just kind of orient him in a certain zone and let him go, and monitor how he was developing things. And because of it, he got some solos that he actually had to relearn and perform on the road because they fit the song so well.
Did you, like, when you're in that role, do you use like some of the same philosophy about, man, it's not about your playing, it's about how you're thinking?
In the studio, when you're producing, you're basically dealing with the psychology of how to help the person get out of their own way so they can do their best work. And sometimes it's about music direction. So what was the question again?
Do you, when you're in a coaching production role, like a producing role, do you use some of the same techniques, like as far as, you know, talking about, you know, get your right headspace?
Yes. So some people get closed down when you try and give them technical information, because you're trying to get a performance out of them for recording, and you want it to be as honest and and exciting as possible. And thinking about technical things in that moment is not necessarily the best idea,
Sure.
unless the person is advanced enough where that, having that conversation isn't a problem. So it depends. The long answer to the short question is it depends on the person and where they're at as a musician. And I have to be able to assess who I'm talking to and what the potential is here, and create a way for them to understand that all paths are equally valid. A passionate player that has no musical technical background of theory or how to do things is as valid as someone who is completely technical and has not made the emotional connection between them and themselves and music. It's a strictly mechanical exercise. It's all, one person's path is maybe different, but they're all going to end up at the same spot if they stay dedicated. So it depends on the person.
And you are definitely somebody that is, when you're in an interaction, I can tell that it's really important for you to have like your antennas on to feel what's going on. Yes?
Yeah.
Because
yes.
When you said that to me before, I was impressed. When you said, hey, I want to get my earbuds so I could hear the nuances of your voice. Well, you're not interested in nuances of my voice because you're like, my voice makes you feel good. It's because you're wanting to know what's the intent or like the emotion behind it. So I was impressed when you said that, because it's, having that awareness is important from a communications. It's just, it's important. I think so anyway. And obviously you do as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I'm playing, I'm going for a feeling. Ultimately, that's the goal. So anyway.
No, all good, man. Steven Seagal, how'd you get hooked up with him, and what was that like?
Good segue from Tommy Castro. So I was working for Jim Dunlop Company as a demonstrator. I've done a fair amount of manufacturing demos for them, most notably through with the Way Huge product line. And I'm at Gear Fest at Sweetwater playing, and I'm walking through the parking lot, and I get a phone call, and it's Tommy Castro saying, "Hey, man, Steven Seagal is looking for a guitar player." I'm like, "The actor?" "Yeah, man, he's a blues guitar player. He's a nut. He's got like the most important blues guitar collection in the world."
That's what I've heard about his collection.
It's a fact. And, I can't do it. So I thought of you. You want to take a phone call? I'm like, sure. So I take the phone call, and it's Steven Seagal. "Hey, man, I need a guitar player."
Hold on a minute, man. It's like fucking spot on. And if you don't, I'll fucking kill you.
Yeah. "You can just try to say no to me."
Oh my God.
So I'm like, okay, well, yeah, man. I'm going to be done with this gig and go back to California, and then maybe I can call you, in a few days, and we can set something up. He's like, "Well, I kind of need someone like tomorrow." And I'm in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I'm out there just to try and do this gig. So I've only got enough stuff for 2 days, basically the clothes I have on and a couple of things. And he wants me to go direct to Phoenix from Fort Wayne, Indiana. So I won't bore you with that incredibly intense scenario. But when it was over, I landed in Phoenix, and I don't know if you have time, but there's a wild story.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
It's a wild story. So I land in Phoenix, and this is kind of long, so my apologies. I land in Phoenix, and I get off the plane, and I go into the bathroom to kind of freshen up before I'm going to meet this person. And I reach into my bag to grab a comb or something, a brush, and I feel the stabbing pain, and it's on my left ring finger, the stabbing pain that happens. I'm like, and I pull out my finger, and there's blood just pouring down my left arm.
Holy.
And I'm staring at my finger, and there's a hole in the tip of my finger.
Oh.
And I'm like, what? Kind of like slowly my brain is flowering to this very strange situation. And I reach in, and there's a regular three-bladed Gillette shaving razor.
Oh, shit.
And I basically sliced off the tip of my finger. And so there's this disc.
Really, really painful.
There's this disc of perfect skin that kind of looks like a saucer. It's it's convex, so it's like a hole, you know. So you've got the roundness of the top, and then you have this deep round on the bottom. And I pick it up, and I see it's just perfect fit, and I put it on the tip of the finger, and I immediately start to scream because the pain is even more intense. And as I'm doing this, people are just walking by. I'm not kidding. No one's saying, "Do you need help?" Or anything. And it's just like walking by. And I make the mistake of running my finger under the water.
Oh, dude. Oh.
And it hurts even more, and it washes the tip that I put there off down the drain.
Oh, my God. I should have said, no, we didn't have time for that part of the story.
So there's another set of funny things where I get bandaged up, and I meet the guy who's to meet me to go, the driver to pick me up to go meet Steven. And I'm telling him, dude, I don't know if I should get back on the plane and go home. I don't know if I need to go to a hospital and get stitches. But I just sliced my finger off the tip of it. And I don't know if I can, this is, and he's like, I tell him the story, and then he gets on the phone with Steven, and Steven says, he's come this far. Let me just meet the guy and see what's up.
And this is your left hand it happened on, you said?
And my ring finger.
And you're a righty guitar player.
Yeah, so this is my fretting hand.
Yeah. Oh.
And so we drive out there. I get into a room, and little did I know, the previous guitar player that they were trying to replace is rehearsing. They're rehearsing when I arrive, and they're looking to replace him right then. It's kind of weird.
That's a weird situation to walk into.
Yeah, I can't imagine. It's it must be some sort of like the way films work, and they just transferred that vibe to the music world. Anyway,
hey, you're
out. He walks in. The guy's huge. He's like 6'5", 6'6". He's a massive dude.
The guitar, his guitar player, current.
No, he is.
Oh, Steven.
Seagal.
Oh, yeah, he is huge.
Big dude. And he walks in. And he says, "Let me see it." I'm like, "How you doing?" He's like, "How you doing? Let me see it." So I unbandage it, and it starts to bleed.
Oh, my God.
And he's looking at it, and he goes, "Well, I'm a healer. I can fix that." He says that.
Oh, my God. This is getting nuttier and nuttier.
Yeah, he says, "I'm a healer. I can fix that." And I don't doubt people,
Yeah, of course.
Who knows? This guy's his interests are diverse and wild. So, maybe he does have some magic herb. So I'm like, we start to have a conversation, and it comes down to the music, and I tell him, "Look, I don't know if I can play." As I repeated to the driver, I don't know if I need to go to the hospital or if I need to go home. And he's like, "Why don't you play me something? And I'll tell you whether it's
with your bloody finger."
Yeah. My ring finger, right? So anything I have to play with three fingers has to be done with the first, second, and the pinky.
Yeah, not the ideal situation.
Yeah, in terms of coordinating something. So I tell him, "Look, I'll tell you what, since I don't know anything here, I'll learn one of your songs in front of you. And based on that, you can make a decision. And he's like, all right, do you know any of my music? I'm like, no.
Do I know any of my music?
I know.
Yeah, I just listen to it on iTunes.
He's recorded records. I've never heard them. So I say, anybody got a CD? Anyone can you play me something? So he dials it up on a YouTube video. I pull out my guitar. I kind of fret around with the first, second, and fourth finger. And I turn on the tune and start to basically learn it, because I'm going to have to do that. And he's watching me learn it with three fingers.
Now, is this in the same room? Sorry to interrupt you. As the other guitar player? Like, is all this shit?
No.
Okay, so you're in another studio.
Another part of the hotel. Yeah. He's basically taken over half a hotel, I think. And so he was impressed with me learning his tune with three fingers. And he said, all right, you got the gig, but now you got to decide whether you want it. And he leaves.
What happened to I'm a healer? Your fucking hand is like sitting there. Nothing has been healed.
Exactly. Well, I think he's got mojo. I don't know. Anyway, I decided to go for it for some reason. And I used this product called New Skin.
Yeah.
Which, if I showed you the pictures of what happened in 8 days healing, it would blow your mind.
Really?
As a guitar player, I don't travel anywhere without it. It's always in my bag now. I put it in my gig bags.
Nuskin?
No, I think it's right. Just normal spelling. N-E-W. New Skin. Might be N-U. But it was a miracle. It completely disinfects the wound as soon as you touch the skin. It hurts like hell, but everything dies instantly. And then it seals it. And it allows oxygen through. I don't know how it does it with the compound, but it breathes and it's protected.
Excuse me.
And my finger healed within 10 days. It was crazy. But I had to rehearse and learn all the material with three fingers.
But what happened to his healing, man?
Right?
I had to call.
I think he gave me some tea. I think he gave me some tea of some sort.
Yeah,
that's what it was. He was crazy. He's like, he has Freddie King's 335.
Wow.
He has, I believe he has all of Albert King's Flying V's. He has Albert Collins' Telecaster. He has guitars that belong to B.B. King. I mean, he has the most important blues guitar collection. He has Albert Collins' amplifier. He has a bunch of those amps. His pedigree, his legit blues guitar collection is probably the most important in the world. It's crazy.
Wow.
And he went on tour with over $1 million worth of guitars.
Did he play? Yes. I mean, does he like pull out?
Yeah.
Hey, here's Freddie King's 335, or here's the Iceman's Telly.
Yeah, he brought. I have a picture of me with Freddie King's 335. But he had a Tadeo Gomez 64 Strat.
That's crazy, man.
One of the back plate serial number ones. Was not on the neck plate. What is it? David Gilmour had serial number 0001.
Yes.
Right. There were about, I think, 100 guitars, Strats built prior to that, where the serial number was imprinted on the tremolo backplate, the piece of plastic. Those are called backplate Strats. He had one of those. He had a 58 gold top original Paul, the Tune-O-Matic.
Oh.
He had, 2 first-year Firebirds. He traveled with a buddy guy, 1959 345.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
He's got to be like I'm sure. Does he have security with him or something? That's a lot of shit to carry around. A lot of valuables.
He does. He travels with 2 bodyguards most of the time. Yes.
Wow. So here's interesting. I don't know if this is going to happen. I'm supposedly someone is referring him to me to come on my show.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got stories, man. He's got stories. He plays with this really unorthodox technique. He uses his right thumbnail in this downward angle. So it's the way you would hold a pick, but instead of the pick, it's the nail. And he's like almost tapping it with his nail. It's a trip.
I just want to hear, hey, that. I don't really care if he has anything to say. To listen to that and watch him say that will be like, okay, very cool.
Yeah, it's true.
So how was the tour? How long did you went to Europe with him?
We went all over Europe. We went all over the UK. We went to Eastern Europe. We played in right after Russia occupied Crimea.
Oh my God.
We went there. It was crazy. Outside of your hotel room, you could see the Russian battle cruisers out on the ocean. It was nuts.
I would imagine all nice places you stayed. You probably didn't stay at a Motel 6.
But we're at this vacation retreat in Crimea, and all the banks started to fight with each other, and they shut off all access to electronic currency. So anyone, with the American Express, with the debit cards, everything just shut down, and we're out there.
So how'd you eat?
We had to do some sort of fancy wire transfer of some sort, and it was crazy. And then I would have these really stupid conversations with locals. Like I'd say, "What country are we in?" And they're like, and they say Russia, and I'm like, "Really? Can you show me that on a map?" And they're looking at me like, "Dude, did you really just say that?"
Holy smokes! So the tour went well then.
Yeah, and we did a gig with George Benson at the Cognac Blues Festival in France, and got to hang out with him and meet with him. And he came and jammed with us on stage. And I had a 2-amp rig, and I unplugged half the rig and gave him the cord to my other amp, and I jammed the blues with George Benson.
What was that like?
Oh, are you kidding me? Come on.
What
that's
did you
like,
get?
That's like a pinch me moment, man. You get to jam the blues with George Benson. That was like levitating. It was like, talking, like riding a wave on the ocean, with the sun shining, and you're feeling every drop,
Yeah. Did you get to play his guitars, Seagal's guitars?
Yes.
Oh, that's good. What did you play mostly? What did you like? You're like, hey man, I don't really like this Freddie King 335. Give me Albert Collins Telly instead.
Well, his best guitar was that 54 Strat, the Tadeo Gomez Strat.
What was so cool about it?
I don't know how you've had this experience where you think you have a guitar and you think it's nice. It's a nice guitar. I like this guitar. There's no way you have no frame of reference to know that guitar is actually a piece of shit. Compared to this guitar.
Yeah. So you felt like every guitar you've ever played was a piece of shit when you picked up the Tadeo?
Yes.
Oh my God.
I mean, the soul, the stability, it's like, I don't know if you've gone into like some sort of historical building where the furniture will outlast the human race. It's like, it's just built,
Yeah.
This thing is really solid. It's like substantial, and hundreds of years worth of asses have sat on this seat, and it's still looking the same.
Hundreds of years worth of asses. Oh my God. we've had hundreds of years of acids here. Look at how pristine it is.
Yeah.
I actually have, my wife is from this little village I told you in England, and this little church, I think, where she was probably, I don't know, had baptized Christian, I don't know, something baptized maybe. It was like from, 200, and it's, it stayed there in the same condition. So I have kind of seen something like that. It's pretty, and all over England, there's, stuff like that, as you know.
Yeah.
So, it is pretty amazing when you see that.
So this guitar, this 54 Strat, it's so stable, and the way it resonated, because it was one thing, it was just sublime, just crazy. It rang like a piano,
Very cool, man. That's an interesting story. Any funny any funny things that Seagal did? Like when you're with him, do you ever like? Oh yeah, does he ever become Steven Seagal in the movies? Sort of.
Well, I will share. Since he occupies different worlds, so he's a gun freak and a weapons fanatic.
Wow, what a diverse! You're right. What a hell of a diverse interest.
He shoots about 300 rounds a day.
Oh wow!
And he's an expert marksman. I've seen it. So he fires a bullet at a target. He fires at a target, and the hole that he creates on the target becomes the new target.
Very cool.
And he's like staying in that same spot. Because of his income, he can have custom weapons made. So he has custom gun guys that he talks with, and they come up with new ideas, and he's got, and knives and stuff like that, and law enforcement and, bodyguards and Secret Service stuff and whatever. So he goes into that world, when he meets someone from that world, law enforcement. And so I got to see firsthand him kind of transform from the music focus, where he's talking about who he's met and the instruments he's played, and, he has access and has had access to all the blues greats and hung out with them. And then we're on tour, and he gives a seminar to a dojo
about martial arts.
And it's a completely separate persona, and he transforms into that person. So that, to answer your question, that was wild.
Yeah, that's pretty
to
interesting.
Witness, because he's so completely immersed in whatever he's doing that there's no way you would, you can kind of see other people, he's that guy only at that moment. He gets laser into it.
Very cool. So that was a good experience then.
Yeah, well,
sort of.
It was wild. It was really wild. I mean, the band was incredible. So we had Elton John's bass player. We had Gary Malaber on drums from, Van Morris and Steve Miller Band. We had it was just a nutty band. Really, we had Big Bill Morganfield on guitar, who's Muddy Waters' son. He was accompanying us and playing, and so the band, was operating at a super high level behind him. That was really fun to be around, and once he caught flight, he could play. It's like, it took him a while to get off the ground, but once he was out there, he would do it. So it had some fun moments.
Very cool. Was that D. Murray? Is that Elton's bass player?
No. What was his name? He also played with Billy Joel. I'm embarrassed because it was so long ago.
No worries, man.
Yeah. I'm kind of spaced out at the moment. It's early still.
It's early for you, man.
Yeah.
I get it. So you originally grew up in San Francisco in the Bay Area?
Yeah. Yeah. I've off and on. I moved a lot when I was a kid. But I spent a decent amount of time in Oakland, a lot off and on in Marin County. And I've lived all across the country. I've lived in Maryland, Virginia, Texas, all up and down California, Nevada. But mostly the Bay Area. So my formative years, I would say, have been concentrated here.
Were folks traveling for business or something, or?
My stepfather was a radio journalist, and so we moved a lot because that's how that industry worked at the time. Because they were buying and selling radio stations like crazy. Different companies would buy, and every time a radio station was purchased, they would fire everybody. Not necessarily. It wasn't because anyone wasn't doing the right thing. It's because the format would change and they wanted to retool. So it was a normal practice with people in that business to move a lot. And so that's what we did.
What was your childhood like growing up, and especially moving all those places?
I was an only child until I was 15. And so I'm fairly adept at being able to entertain myself. I have a lot of, I get into things. And so being alone wasn't really an issue. And I found a way to make friends, and I would find someone I resonated with, and usually we would hang out, just me and him. So I usually only had one or two friends, but they were always really solid. Go ahead.
So when did guitar come into the picture for you?
Well, my father, my real father, my biological father, being a guitarist, I was spending half the time with him and half the time with my mom, and he lived in Oakland. And so I was exposed to the guitar, and I received a guitar when I was 8, but I didn't learn how to play it. It was just like a prop, where I would show my friends, hey, check out, I got a guitar. Let's go play it, and it was out of tune, had 4 strings or whatever. And I didn't start to actually play it until I was in late in my freshman year in high school. And a friend of mine who played guitar asked me if I played guitar, and I don't think I said yes. But I told him I had one. And there was a guitar class offered. So I decided to start to learn. And this was in 1977, 78.
When you sit and say there's a guitar class offered, that is almost like a foreign language for anybody listening. That doesn't happen. I don't know if the Bay Area still, but that's certainly in the East. That's gone.
Which is unfortunate.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about music education. So I started this class, and by the end of the year, they had moved me to the class where the seniors.
So you obviously were aptitude and liked it and worked hard.
I just chewed this stuff up, and I thought in hindsight, I think it's because I had the guitar in my hands physically for a long time. And I was kind of miming, even though I wasn't necessarily doing anything, but my hands were accustomed to holding the instrument. And that alone gave me a quicker aptitude to pick it up. And so when parents or people who are, asking about getting instruments for their kids, and they're kind of frustrated that they can't get the kid to practice or whatever, I always tell them it doesn't matter. If they want to use it as a toy, the important thing is to have the instrument in their hands as much as possible. When they will eventually figure out what to do with it, but make them want to hold it.
Yeah,
that's the trick.
And at what point did you say, hey, I want to do this for a living? Like, when did that become so obsession or?
Wow. I've never equated music with money until late, very late. I'd had gigs. I'd gone on the tour with Montrose. I, was working with Michael Carabello and, decent high level, but I always had other jobs. I had day gigs to basically fund my music passion.
Okay.
So I didn't really have a career. And when my wife and I had our daughter, I was working for Line 6 at the time as a product specialist for them. And we were in a very stable position in our lives. And my daughter had just started school, and we were secure with our landlord and everything was great. We were all on a groove, and I one day was in my kitchen and I reflected on the fact that I've applied myself whenever I've wished something, so I want something and then I apply myself, and I've been relatively successful at getting it. And even though my aspirations were small, that was the track record that I was used to. And I was reflecting on the fact that I'd never tried my hardest to become a full-time musician. I have never applied 100% of my attention and effort to making that happen. I've always just taken it for granted that it wasn't possible and I needed a side gig. So I was having this epiphany one night alone with a glass of wine, and the very next day I decided to form a plan to make that happen. So I saved up, I don't know why, this was a stupid number, but I saved up 3 months worth of income, and I left Line 6 to go play music full time. And at that time, the only gig I had was a reggae gig in the Sunset at a bar on the weekends. It wasn't a real gig.
Wasn't a career builder.
No, it wasn't like, I got this great gig and I'm going to leaf off. It's like, all right, let's see how we do this. And the 3 months of income lasted 1.5 months. And I had to start selling guitars to fund. Every time there was this moment where I was going to make a choice of having to pay the rent by selling a guitar or getting a job again, I sold a guitar because I worked for Line 6 and other companies, and I had built up a decent guitar collection until I was down to a $350 1982 Squire.
Wow.
That had been redone, new frets, new bridge, new electronics. It was great wood, but it was an 82 Squire. And that was the guitar I used to get the Sons of Champlin audition, to get the Huey Lewis and the News audition, to get the CCR audition, and to begin teaching music full time at Blue Bear School of Music in San Francisco. And that started my professional, what I consider my real career.
It's a great marketing headline. I used a $350 Squire guitar to get blah, blah, blah gigs. And here's how you can do the same thing in your town. There you go, man. See, that's my brain is always thinking about marketing shit. Wow. Good story, man. Very cool. And your wife was behind you when you did that?
Yes.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. It's interesting in this industry, as opposed to where I came from in the business world, is very different as far as how people view their marriages and their relationships with their partners or spouses. It's very sacred here. And I think part of the big reason why is, hey, if you find a person that supports what you do and can handle the crazy lifestyle and being in town and not being in town, that's a really special person. In the business world, you don't hear people talking about their wives like that. It's dramatically different. It's definitely nowhere near as positive. Which has been a very nice thing,
Interesting.
Yeah. And because I have a great relationship with my wife. I've been really lucky. We've worked hard at it, but, so I like to hear that, it's nice. And you hear it quite often, music. Let me ask you this, Tal, tuition, we all pay tuition in our careers. And I was wondering maybe if you'd be kind enough to share one or two mistakes you made along your journey and what were the lessons you learned?
So let's clarify the question.
Yeah.
When you describe tuition, are you talking about lessons, negative experiences that you've learned from that have gotten you to where you are right now in a positive sense, or what I say, like formative years? What's the context of the tuition?
Yeah, mistakes that you made, professional mistakes that you made, and then the lesson that you learned from them. As an example, often one thing I hear from time to time is, man, I thought I was hot shit and I didn't prepare for the gig. And then I show up and I got my ass handed to me. That was the first and last time that happened. Some professional mistakes.
Yes. And they're very simple, a lot of them. Being on time. It's a strange thing. There's a huge amount of psychology with being on time. And it has absolutely nothing to do with music and everything to do with personal relationships. And I used to be very flippant about time because I always put the premium on the music ability and the music potential. And once you start playing with me, you'll forgive me for being late, basically.
Uh-huh.
And as you get higher up on the food chain, people are less tolerant of that because there are people there's always someone better than you. Always. I don't care who you are or what you do. So your network is everything. If you think you're just good enough to walk in and play and you're not replaceable, you're dreaming, or you're at this lower level where you think you're hot shit, but you're not. Anyway, I got my ass handed to me a couple of times by people I really respect about being on time and also being prepared for the gig. With, like this one, I used to always forget stuff coming to the gig, and I had not brought a power cord for the 5th time or something, and my bass player blew up at me on stage in front of everybody, and ever since then, the way he phrased all this reasoning had a deep impact. And I always had a gig kit in my car now at all times where I've got a set of strings. I've got a funky distortion pedal, a delay strap, spare tubes. It's this box. It just lives in it's like a first aid kit for a gig. I always take that, and being on time, it's funny how much currency that gives in relationships, because it shows that you respect everyone. You respect yourself. You respect the person you're working with, and being prepared, like you were talking about. Treating. But in terms of mistakes, so getting specific to your question. The erosion of my access to the good gigs and the network because of this reputation of being late. It was like a clear math problem. This plus this equals this. And so it changed my behavior for the better. That was one thing. Being a music snob, most of the people who will give you music work do not operate on the level that you operate musically. It's a fact. You spend all this time as a sideman learning your instrument. The amount of investigation, it's massive, the depth. But the people who are more interested in being entertainers, those are the ones who hire you. And those people are operating on a different level. And they're operating on multiple levels. They're operating on an entertainment level. They're operating on an emotional level. The music is just a facet of their situation, and they're hiring you to manifest that. And so many times early on, a lead singer or whatever, songwriter doesn't know the name of their chord or whatever, and you're like chastising them, or you're feeling like superior because that person doesn't know a C major 7. What a fucking moron, And you're just putting this air of superiority in the situation. You're just basically fucking yourself out of being called for the gig because, these people want to create an entertainment product, basically, and they're hiring you to help them do it. So regardless of their musical education, if you want the gig, respect the situation for what it is and use your skills to apply yourself to the job. And so the lessons where, you get this reputation as a music snob and you don't get the calls, and cats who can't play as well as you do are getting the calls. And you're like, what's going on? I don't understand.
Man, thank you. That's the first time I've heard that. That is a really good answer. Thank you very much. Let's talk about gear for a few minutes.
Yeah.
What's your, is not a guitar player I ever say that to that doesn't have that energy and enthusiasm in their knee-jerk response like you did. Everybody's like, yeah. It was like gear. Yeah. Yeah, right. What's your go-to guitar right now, man? And what other guitars would round out your top 3?
My go-to guitar is a B3. Here.
Yeah, man. Let's check it out.
Do you know who Gene Baker is?
That name sounds familiar.
Gene Baker is a master luthier. He was one of the original Fender Custom Shop luthiers. He worked with the Gibson Custom Shop. He built the Robin Ford's Fender Esprit was his design.
Mm-hmm.
When he was with Fender, he built most of Ronnie Montrose's guitars from the 90s to when he died. And that's his main claim to fame, is being Ronnie's personal luthier. And here's the spec sheet for the guitar he made for me.
Wow. Okay. So that looks, what is that? It's like a Les Paul double cutaway Les Paul style guitar. It has a 24 and 6. Why do you say that? 625 inch. So basically 24 and 24 scale length. 12-inch radius. It's mahogany and maple top. Indian rosewood fingerboard. 12-inch radius. So that's a pretty flat neck. Yes.
Yes.
I like those.
Yeah. It's freaking awesome.
When did you get that?
In 2013.
So he made that guitar for you independently, not through Fender or Gibson or anything like that.
Correct. He made it for me, and I asked him to put my name on the 12th fret.
Do you have the guitar right there too?
Yeah.
Dude, let me see that sucker. Oh, wow. Okay, so let me see if I could describe this. That is so cool. It's B3. That was his So B3, that was his brand?
That is his brand. Yes.
Okay. And so, oh wow, the 12th fret is it says Tal Morris right on the. That is so cool. Wow. So, is that light?
I didn't want a chambered one.
Okay.
So
Beautiful. What kind of pickups are that? That's beautiful, man.
Lawler Imperials. GoPro hardware.
It's like a honey burst, I think. Is that what it is? Or
no, it's like a dark burst. It's
beautiful
like
guitar, man.
Yeah. It rings like a piano.
Sounds great, man.
Just keep going, right? Go by, come back.
Sounds great, man. So that's your number one.
That's my number one. It's just extremely stable and it's great guitar. Gets me through. It's got coil tapping so I can faux my way through a Strat moment. Then I have my recent lust has turned to
my recent lust.
I discovered a 1998 Ibanez AS 2000.
Is that semi-hollow or something?
AR 2000, sorry. No. It's an artist series guitar. Similar to this, it's exactly in between a Les Paul and an SG.
Okay.
So it's not as thin as an SG, and it's not as thick as a Les Paul in terms of body depth. So it's kind of narrowish.
I'll tell you, Ibanez makes great guitars, man.
And this guitar, they only made this model for 6 years. And it's just incredible. It's absolutely incredible. It has a 3-piece neck, so the neck is extremely stable. And the pickups are the Super 58s. It's got the Gibraltar 2 bridge, which is incredibly stable. It's like nuts. And this was, when they put this guitar out in 1998, is when they put this guitar out. It was like a reissue of sorts, but it didn't have the cloud thing on the back of the bridge. It just looked like a normal Tune-o-matic, but with this Gibraltar 2 form factor. And I discovered it at the store and I traded for it, and it's just a sublime instrument. Excuse me. And I've been playing that a fair amount because I got that last year. And so that's, and I have a Partacaster that a really good friend of mine made for me out of parts, MJ body, Warmouth neck, Callum hardware, and DiMarzio virtual vintage pickups. And it's just it's a working guitar where I can get a lot done in sessions and on gigs and not have to worry about noise. And it's very versatile. And those are my 3 main electrics. Obviously I've got a bunch of I've got jazz boxes and some obscure Teisco funky guitars, and
that's cool.
I still have the original Squire.
Oh, the 82.
Yeah, it's sitting on the wall. I don't play it anymore, but it's there out of honor.
Yeah, man. You got some pretty good gigs with that guitar. It started your career.
Yes, it did. And my real love is this.
What is that? Nice looking acoustic nylon string classical guitar. It looks like, no?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Made by a luthier out of Paracho, Mexico, named Carlos Pina.
Beautiful guitar, man.
Yeah.
Really pretty.
I love this guitar.
Do you play a lot of acoustic?
I have, yeah. I played this one a whole lot. Yeah, I had a gig where I was basically the acoustic guitarist. I have a Larrivee Brazilian dreadnought, and I play that through a Mesa Boogie Rosette acoustic amp. And I got a fair amount of work as an acoustic guitarist to back up singers. That's what I've been doing for a very long time is learning and focusing on backing up a singer and how that works. And so once you get that kind of reputation,
that's you
do more of that work,
That's a good niche because it's so prolific. It is like an endless amount of need for that.
Yes.
It's pretty smart, actually. Yeah. And to have somebody call someone where there's no issues, where you know how to play, how to mic, how to not override them, that is a really, you could charge a premium for that because the amount of headaches that you're allowing people to avoid is well worth it. That's great, man. Smart. Very cool. I like that. I just wanted to point out, you've talked about in general all these other side hustles that you've had and things you've done. I think that's the reality of, being a successful sideman. And, the more things you do, they all seem to have led to, other opportunities, which is wonderful.
When you say side hustles, what are you referring to?
Well, like earlier, you talked about when you were not the full-time gig with Line 6, but you were doing something else when you met either Michael Carabello or Ronnie Montrose, and I meant to talk with you about it, and I apologize.
Well, prior to becoming a full-time professional guitarist, I'd always separated money from music, meaning they weren't equitable, and there was no money did not play into how I made my decisions.
Sure.
With regard to what to do musically. And it was only until I decided to make my living as a musician when that shift happened. So now economics are a part of the musical decision. So side hustle. So once you do that, then how many different ways can you apply yourself to make a living with your instrument, right? So the decision I made was I want to make money with this as my tool to make money with. So that I had gone to Blue Bear School of Music as a teenager, and I returned as a teacher. And so I was teaching at that place for off and on for about 10 years. And obviously sessions, sometimes teaching people how to operate the instrument itself or from a mechanical point of view, tone lessons, which people don't really focus on. How do I use a distortion pedal? How much is, how do the guitar, amplitude, when is it too loud? When is it not loud enough? How do I work with treble and all of these sorts of things that people don't necessarily focus on when they're learning how to play, but they should, because it's massively important. So whatever I had to do to keep, in the very beginning, I even did a little bit of guitar repair. I did a few fret jobs, working on repairing electronics and nuts and things of that nature. And so
but you spent a long period of time, the old saying yes to lots of things.
Well, that's the rule.
So then you could say no to some of those things as you move up the food chain, as you said,
You just nailed it.
Yeah. And that's every career. I think you need to do that.
That's the rule. You say yes to everything until you're full, and you can say no to the thing on the lowest level of your priority list. And what's left, hopefully, when you're finished going through that cycle and having integrity while you do it, you'll be where you need to be. You just got to trust in the process. I mean, that's one thing I decided to do when I became full-time is it didn't matter whether I was in a cafe or if I was in front of 50,000 people. I applied myself equally. And that became my reputation. And so, I was always respectful and I gave equal energy to everything I said yes to.
Yeah, work ethic is so important, man. You can't. And again, this is one I've been fortunate, and I think it's pretty safe to say every successful musician has a good work ethic. I don't see how you can do that. I mean, I haven't. Everybody I've talked to, sure, you have lulls at times because you're human, but everybody overall has a pretty strong work ethic. To you don't ascend that food chain without it.
No. And there's no such thing as being over prepared. I just don't. I don't think that exists. Personally.
Tal, Desert Island Discs, no particular order, just for today.
Oh God!
Like just for now, not even today, because I could ask you.
That's impossible. Desert Island Discs. The Alan Holdsworth compilation CD Eidolon, I believe it's called.
Mm-hmm.
It's the perfect retrospective of his career. If you just need a dose of what was this guy about, that's the record. Kind of Blue, Miles Davis. Electric Ladyland, Jimi Hendrix, that's 3. B.B. King live at Cook County Jail.
Yeah, I like that one much better than live at the Regal. A lot of people go live at the Regal, but
I understand, right? I'm in the exact same boat, bro. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Everyone throws live at the Regal at my face, and I put on live at Cook County Jail. I'm like, listen to this.
Yeah,
come on. Man, it's nuts. So many incredible things to listen to.
One more.
I mean, one more. The Brandenburg concertos.
It's pretty popular, actually.
Well, you got to have some Bach in your life. I'm sorry.
Hey, 3 more questions. These are tough.
Dear.
These are tough. Most important things you've learned about yourself throughout your career experience and life in general.
Most important things I've learned about myself. In the process of working, accepting, knowing what my faults are, and accepting that they are there. Not to accept that they will always be there, but not ignoring them and finding a way to manage them through careful consideration as you're saying yes to things is extremely important. When you, like for instance, I know how long it takes for me to learn something. I'm very clear on that. And it might be longer than others, but I make sure that I spend the time to do that. Or I know how much work I can handle, and I don't want to take on too much. So I say no to certain things, knowing that I have my limits, even though I wish I didn't. I've turned down gigs that I know I can't play at the peak, at the level that it needs, because I'm very keen on what I can and can't do, and what I think would be good for them if they called this person.
That's really great integrity, man.
I just run into trouble when I don't do that, because I might end up in the deep end of the pool.
No, I totally get it. Yeah.
And I'm like, I haven't learned how to swim this yet, and, some people say fake it till you make it. And you can do a fair amount of that, and people are all about the hang and, but, I've run into problems where I put myself in a situation where I'm not necessarily qualified to be all the way there. And the ones who are there can see right through you. It's like if you go to another country where you don't speak the language, they know exactly how much you don't know in the first 5 seconds of you talking.
Great analogy, man.
And so it's the same. And so I don't like being in that position.
Well, yeah, it causes, even if it's a decision of integrity, ultimately it's like self-preservation. Like, who the hell wants to stress? And especially, I don't know about you, but as I've gotten older, like, making decisions based on what's less stress is incredibly important to me.
Yeah. So when I do say yes and I come through, that becomes part of my integrity bank account. That becomes part of my reputation. And so maintaining that is incredibly important.
I agree. I like that, man. I agree with you 100%. That becomes part of my integrity bank account. I like that very much. Person who's had the biggest influences on you in a musical sense and also personally.
Well, there's all sorts of influences, from actual music to a music lifestyle to professional, considerations, locally and internationally. Observing them versus personal contact. It's hard to quantify. I would have to say, my family obviously has had the greatest impact, both my fathers, especially my stepfather, my mother, my wife.
You've been married a long time?
We've been together as a couple for 30 years. We got married in 93.
Dude, congratulations. That's awesome, man.
Yeah. With regard to my stepfather, I watched him go through all sorts of professional trials firsthand, being a journalist. So I watched him hustle and get it done, from newspaper gigs all the way up to network news anchor at NBC in Washington, D.C. for the NBC radio. Transitioning to become a published author, full-time writer, transitioning to become, the head of he's the James Wallace Chair at the University of Oregon right now. He's a tenured professor now. It's never too late to go to school. It's never too late to get into something. Mm-hmm. And so in terms of like what's possible, he's kind of blazed the path. And that's been the greatest influence, because no matter how old you get, you can still go for it, and that's kind of cool. So I would say that's been a huge influence. Musically, there was this moment in my life where I just completed, I went to Musicians Institute in Los Angeles, where I got to hang out with Joe DiArio and Scott Henderson and Frank Umbali and Paul Gilbert and a lot of, Norman Brown and a lot of pretty incredible players were my teachers. And they're incredibly cool people for the most part. And I learned more from them being in their presence almost than I did from them musically. Just being exposed to that level of creativity and music power on a daily basis. It's just like, whoa, here's what's possible. And being shown what's possible is I think, the most important thing, because that just like lays it out for you, like, go, And so being exposed to them, people like Joe DiOrio and Scott Henderson, and, it was just mind blowing and incredibly nourishing. And, I think the human brain operates at multiple levels at such a high level. It's so difficult to describe learning something. Put your finger here and put your pick on the string here. It's like, that's like 1/10 of the information you're getting just watching a master play.
That's the tip of the iceberg, and there's tons of the majority of it's underneath the water. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'd practiced and became semi-educated from that process. And I was home, and I got a scholarship to go to Stanford Jazz Workshop. And Charlie Hayden, the famous stand-up bass player, was teaching a master class. And the only way you got into his class was through audition. And I auditioned, and they put me with him, with some other incredible players. And the master class was him basically leading the band with his music. He taught the band how to play his songs. And so we're playing he's given us all charts, and we're playing. And the piano player's taking the solo, and he's kind of killing it. He's doing really well, blah, blah, blah. And Charlie Hayden stops the entire band. He says, stop, stop, stop. And he walks right up to the piano player and goes, what are you doing? And it's kind of negative, and everyone's kind of all of a sudden freaked out, and all eyes are on the piano player because we all thought the dude was just nailing it. And the piano player starts to describe what he was doing. Oh, I was playing the, flat 5 transition with the dominant moving for the 2, substituting the 5 for a flat 5, whatever. And Charlie Hayden says to him, how much is your life worth to you?
That's pretty fucking intense about a piano solo.
Yeah. And it's like, the context was unknown. I was like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? And it was kind of like that moment with, Brett and Samuel Jackson in Pulp Fiction. What does Marsalis Wallace look like?
Yeah.
What?
If you say what again?
So, this piano player is like, a lot. He's like, I guess. And Charlie Hayden says, well, it doesn't sound like it.
Oof. Wow.
And then Charlie Hayden says to this guy, and I'll never forget what he said. He said, how much does your life mean to you? Because you're living it right now. You're living your life right now. And if your life means something, I want to hear that it does, because your life is happening right this second. This is it. And I want to hear that it means something to you. So if you think that your life means something to you, I want you to play as if it does, because this is all the time we've got right now. And I don't want you to waste my time. I don't want any of you to waste any of these people's time. It's right now. So play like your life means something to you. And he said it more eloquently, but he basically walked away, and everybody in the band got the message. And we played the song, and we were playing real music at that point. It just happened. Again, because it puts your brain in the proper headspace, and you put the right amount of focus to it. And I'll never forget that lesson.
Dude, that was really cool. Thank you for sharing that. That was awesome.
You know?
Wow. Great segue to the last question, which is, what's been the biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of that has been intentional and how much is just a natural part of aging? Just when you thought it couldn't get any more difficult.
Yeah, I thought it was Everyone Loves Guitar, not Everyone Loves Psychology.
Do you know Doug Bossy?
Who?
Doug Bossy. He's in LA.
No.
He said he said you need to rename your show Everyone Loves Therapy.
Right? Exactly. We haven't talked about guitar education or string gauges or whatever. So what was the question again?
Biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years.
Last 10 years. Well, I stopped drinking 2.5 years ago.
Congratulations, man.
That was probably, you could probably in 10 years say that was the biggest shift. And just with all, it wasn't a problem from like, functional point of view. It was a biological thing. My body just decided it wasn't going to tolerate it anymore.
Well, good for you that you responded kindly.
Yeah. And a whole set of things changed because of that, obviously.
Yeah.
And I've solidified my relationship with music, speaking of therapy, as the primary source of therapy. So I find that listening to music and being strategic about what I listen to at what times is incredibly helpful. I went through this period of during that transition of learning how to play Bach, because I'd never attempted. I always thought it was over there, like, that's something that those guys do.
Mm-hmm.
And but I love to practice, and so I'm a much better player than I was 10 years ago. And I thought to myself, well, maybe I have the technical ability to actually do this. I just haven't tried. And I have a horrible memory. So I had to figure out a way to learn this stuff. And so I decided to learn one bar at a time and then stitched them together. And I stitched together, 4 pages of sheet music and committed it to memory.
Good for you. Man.
But what was the unexpected outcome was what physiologically and psychologically, what happened playing that music.
Which was?
I can't describe it without being foo-foo or dogmatic, but there's like this kind of alignment that happens when you start to investigate Bach's music. He was so incredibly in tune with a certain vibe, is all I can put it. And it comes through in his music. When you play it, when you start to investigate it, when you get into the thinking of it, all of a sudden you're transported into this zone. And what it does to your spirit, your brain, it's incredibly therapeutic. It's like outrageously therapeutic for me. And has done more to create a sense of place and a sense of peace and a sense of clarity than any sort of ingested, thing. from, you name it. It's like, it's way more powerful. And has been a big shift. So that's what I'm saying about learning how what music can do for you on a therapeutic level. I experienced it firsthand, learning how to play Bach pieces, and I'm going to be doing it for the rest as long as my fingers will allow. Yeah,
well, just don't put your razor make sure you put your razor in a shaving kit before you pack it, and I think you'll be all right, man.
My God, dude, you would have flipped out had you seen it, and I'll send you the pictures that let you see the progression.
Oh no, don't send me. I'm not good with that stuff, man. No, I'm not. I'm not.
It's
good
amazing.
With that
it healed
stuff.
Completely. It's a miracle. New Skin. I can't recommend that product. I should do ads for them.
You should, man. And you should do ads for the new Bach compilation called "Yes You Can." Because that was
yes,
a great commercial.
One bar at a time.
Yeah, that was a great commercial.
Well, that was the whole deal. I told myself no one needs to hear this. That's rule 1. And 2 is it doesn't matter how long this takes. So as soon as I let those 2 things go,
no pressure.
It started to
stress
started to happen.
Tal, I can't thank you enough. I really enjoy this. Let me tell people if they want to get involved with you, what they can do. Tal's a great teacher, and he is available if you are an intermediate or higher student for guitar lessons. You can work with him in person if you're out in the Bay Area, or on Skype if you're not. And the best way to connect with him would be on Facebook Messenger through his business page, which is Tal Morris. And that's it, man. Any final words of wisdom?
Don't judge yourself when playing music. And don't prevent yourself from playing music because you're comparing yourself to others. I firmly believe that if everyone engaged in making music, that it automatically would send the world towards a more positive place, because the act of making music puts you into a certain place that makes it better for the world once you've experienced that. So play because you want to, and that's it.
Dude, that was great. I agree. You're very well thought out. I watch you. I like to watch, when you respond, I was watching the gears turn on your questions. They were very well thought out, which is very cool. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for everything.
All right.
Everybody, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels. We definitely appreciate your support. Thanks very much to Tal Morris for spending time with us. Check out Tal if you're interested in some lessons. And make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up to get on our newsletter list so you and I can connect. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.